Hello and welcome, everybody, as we are here for the fifth and final day of this week for the 2020 Season 2 North American Contenders Trials. We are bringing you this amazing fifth day. I am Rich Red here with the mighty Kenobi, and we have a match between us today. It'll be Noble versus Skyfoxes and Kenobi. It's quite interesting to see these two go against one another, especially with how Skyfox has just had quite a gatekeeper moment yesterday against Uprising Academy.
Yeah, Skyfoxes got to play spoiler to Uprising Academy's attempts to get into contenders proper with that win that they took a 2-1 victory. So now the momentum obviously on their side a little bit. Unfortunately for Skyfoxes, they won't be making it into contenders for this month, but they are going up against Noble. They can play for some pride here. And speaking of pride, Rich, Noble definitely playing for pride now. They have yet to win a map the entirety of this week of Contenders Trials. So when we're looking at them, this might be the moment for them to take finally a map and, give themselves a little bit of a pat on the back and not go a little big old goose egg on them.
Absolutely. And when you've got something like that riding on it, pride is a key thing because you want to solidify a victory, something to put on your shoulders and to know that, you are here to really compete. Even though they've had a difficult time through the course of this week, Skyfoxes has also found their own ever since we casted them on day 1.
Yeah, it looks like a much better team, especially in their performance yesterday against Boston, where I thought a lot of the players, especially on the Genji poke composition that is standard right now in the current meta, they looked a lot better on it, I think, especially coming out from Atlas on the Genji, who is someone that I was really looking at because this is a meta where DPS can carry. I think Atlas and Aether have done a good job, but we're going into Ruins first, Rich, for both of these teams. And for Noble, a little bit of an interesting composition from them, having Chain on that Hammond. Moose is going to be on the Zarya, basically making him immortal. And the main thing that you have to look out for is Valen on that Widowmaker. We know Ruins, Rich, a very good Widowmaker playground. We'll see what Valen can do here against the dive coming out from Skyfoxes.
And Valen needs to hit a mark early on this, but when you've got one already taken down on the side of Noble, that Skyfoxes leads into this, but still has to be quite patient, not to get picked off by that Widow play, and with Frosted right there to contest with those micro rockets, this will easily go in favor of Skyfoxes out the gate.
And I wonder if Noble is going to stay on this composition. No, they're not. So this is actually a really good switch, I believe. Valen wasn't going to get a lot of value, especially against the dive always being up in his face like that. So a switch coming out from Noble completely. Moose actually going over to the Roadhog, known for that hero. And we see a bit of an interesting dive, pseudo dive coming out from Noble. The only difference is that there is going to be that Roadhog instead of something like a Diva.
Yeah, and the Roadhog brings in that single takedown dynamic, but against Skyfoxes and how well they've been able to hold their own, especially with the harass by Aether, it's going to be very difficult, especially how you have faded from Skyfoxes playing so aggressive with that Tesla cannon damage, whittling down Noble. But there's a great recovery here from Noble to look for another engage.
Just waiting here for this fight to start. Faded does go down, but the pulse bomb is out. Gets a kill onto Tensa.
Nice even exchange, 1-for-1 tank versus support, but the Dragon Blade by Atlas with Fallen and the Rally gives a nice securance of holding back Noble. And even though it's happening, there is still a switchback for a hot second for those couple of percentage points by Noble. But with this kind of scattered play and a counter blade from Ultima, there could be a chance of recovery, but it's not going to be enough. There is so much response by Skyfoxes, who have been developing this through the week. They're going to take it back at 15% from Noble.
Yeah, that was a bit of a hero play, I would say, from Ultimate Wep there, especially since he didn't have the Ana to give him the Nano. If he was Nanoed, I think there's a much better chance that Blade actually gets value, but it doesn't end up doing so. And now Skyfoxes continue to tick up their percentage here, almost towards that last fight territory. Chain going down means this fight's not going to go on any sooner.
No, not at all. I mean, you had that awareness by both Atlas and Frosted to collapse onto the Wrecking Ball, taking it out early, especially because the minefield is being held onto. This is last fight territory now for Noble.
Last fight, David Bomb is going to come out. We'll see what it can get.
Oh, actually gets one on the Tracer, so there's not going to be that backline harass onto the supports, which we'll typically see. You have Faded committing this primal range on the front side to knock back multiple members. The supports are just sitting pretty in the back line from Skyfoxes to fuel anything, but this nice environmental kill from the Wrecking Ball forces at least one of the tanks out of this fight. A Dragon Blade to follow through after that early numbers advantage and allows Noble to actually get back into this with only that blade usage.
So this time they do get the blade and they do get the nano topped on top of it, and that means Ultimate Whip is basically free to do whatever he wants in the backline of Skyfoxes. But now it's going to be Skyfox's turn to have the nano blade enriched with 99% for Skyfoxes. Nano Blade can win you a fight, and they only need to win that one fight. So we'll see what this Nano Blade ends up doing. Tensa does have the rally. I'd like to see it be used a little bit sooner than just to counter the blade outright.
For sure, to generate that armor on the rest of the team to withstand this aggression as Atlas leads in with the Dragon Blade. As you said, to get that pressure in the back line, Tensa has utilized it, but it will not gain any value. Nobody close enough outside of Tensa getting the armor, and it cannot withstand the blade. Aether harassing as well in the back line, and as Skyfoxes transitions to this point, wipes the face of it off of Noble, nowhere to even run. And that's going to be this first map of Ruins round going to Skyfoxes.
And it looked very good for Skyfoxes during that entire matchup. Noble playing this interesting composition, as I would call it, with the... I mean, we have seen a little bit of the Hammond and the Roadhog in the same composition as a dive, to especially if you're playing into the mirror. You can do a lot of good things with the Roadhog when someone dives onto you. Basically, you can just one-shot them when they get in there quickly enough if you have the damage output. So I didn't think it was that bad of a compositional choice for Noble, but I think there was some interesting decisions in terms of how they were playing it as a team, because there were a lot of times where Chain was going in by himself, gets eliminated and gets blown up and dies first, and you don't want to have that happen when you're a Hammond. So now that we go to Lighthouse, same composition coming out from Noble again, and from Skyfoxes, I wouldn't expect them to change anything, because Rich, if it ain't broke, there's no reason to fix it.
100% as Chain gets to that point quickly, and this early pick by Moose, you talked about it, starting to transition forward. Aether eliminated, and that's a numbers advantage for, at this point, Noble to play very forward with Chain.
Those are the type of plays that you need for this composition. You need those early picks, especially on those important DPS heroes. So well played at the start from Noble already, and we're having a scrappy fight. Faded gonna go down here, so that means Noble should take control at this point.
Yeah, you do not want that. You've played a little bit too far forward from Faded, gets taken down, and Noble is in a good spot to generate some decent percentage in that nice little subtle stagger onto Atlas as well.
Atlas slicing in. Ooh, gonna give us some dance moves. Let's go Ultimate Whip. I see you. I see. Ooh, he's breaking it down on him, Rich. He's breaking it down. That's the type of swagger you love to see in Overwatch, and we're going to be seeing the Tracers duel it out here. Not too many ultimates to talk about. The main one is that Pizza Damien is going to have the nano much sooner than Autumn Souls will. And you can just throw it onto a Genji raw, and it's going to do a lot of damage regardless if you don't have the blade.
Yeah, with the blade not being ready, again, moving into this, Atlas trying to catch up to Ultima, who does have the advantage just barely at the present moment, and another takedown onto Faded, who is unfortunately not being covered by the supports as nicely with coordination, and this consistent climb in percentage for Noble is just continuing to bode in their favor, despite Foxes putting up a decent fight on the front, and with the brig play from Fallen and rotating into this now, it's going to allow some more survival, but Moose secures a hold with that whole hog, and this fight is still ongoing, and Chain is really mitigating a lot of the positioning by this Wrecking Ball.
Atlas has the Nano Blade, though, doesn't end up getting kills, but Aether is the one who comes up with the picks that are needed. A huge halt from Moose takes out Autumn Souls, and there's a return blade from Ultimate Web.
Absolutely critical to counter against this. Such a widespread play of members from both sides, and despite the chaos, there has been still some great reform by Noble to compete against Skyfoxes.
And now we're going to be in last fight territory, Rich, for Noble. 80%, that means if they win this next fight, they're going to win this round of Ilios. Skyfox is actually making a switch towards Aether, putting them on the Sombra so that Chain isn't allowed to cause as much havoc as he wants in their back line, because Chain has been doing a lot of good disruption so far.
Yes, with that disruption, it's causing so much problem for Skyfox's Aether on the Sombra, looking for a chance to enter into this fight in a more favorable position. Chain gonna get overwhelmed by Faded, but now going to get slept off the edge by Pizza Demon! What a dart to bring the monkey down over the cliff. 99% for Noble, and the picks keep coming. Fallen with the rally to just withstand this competition of Ultima, but ultimately falls. Overtime gonna just be drawn out as the Blade will a nice reset there on the dash to survive the Primal. But overall, that overtime is going to subtly come to an end, and that will be Noble being able to even the score 1 round to 1 round.
And that was a lot better for Noble as well. The Roadhog worked really much better than it did in that other matchup. They were getting a lot of good hooks, and they were getting a lot of good picks onto members before fights were even started, so they weren't letting Skyfoxes set up their executes and set up their dives. So already a really nice difference from that first round of Ilios to that second round from Noble. And Rich, it's now tied 1-1. Noble is potentially could get their first mapped win of Contenders Trials right here on Well. Obviously, Roadhog on this map, always a good pick, because you can just pull people into the well and get environmental kills that way. And with how Moose has been playing, especially on that last round, definitely something that Skyfoxes has to be wary of here.
And moving out, the well in the center is a place and point that I always look to, because Orisa is my one trick of all. And the fact that you've got Faded on it makes me really happy looking at this composition.
And we should see for Skyfoxes with their composition how already scared they are of something like Shane getting into their backline. You see Aether is switched over to the McCree, giving much more CC to blow up Shane anytime he goes into this death ballish type of composition from Skyfoxes. So we'll see how Chain will play around the amount of CC that Skyfoxes is going to have against them.
And with that, MVP coming out here on Aethers, changing it up. We've seen this McCree play before. Ultra, does actually dive in, and it actually looks like I think we're going to be losing feed at the moment, and we will actually be losing it mid-aggression by Ultima. So it looks like we've had some technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a day of Overwatch without that, my friends. Let's be honest and true as we talk amongst one another. It looks like, yes, it is going to be a hard crash on the feed here. So what we're going to attempt to do is we will go to just a brief break to see if we can regain that visibility, to see, as Kenobi, you mentioned, Noble being able to take maybe their first map, or Skyfox is still going to prevent them a map. So don't go anywhere, friends, because we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, friends, as we are now going to continue the intensity between Noble and Skyfoxes. As you can see on the screen, it is 75% for Noble, with Skyfoxes entering into this attack, but is going to fall short here with a pulse bomb already taking down the support, and the huge assistant Aether will also look to take down a tank. But at this point, this is quite a back and forth between these two, and to be honest, while we've been away, Noble is looking to try and get this first map win, my friend.
And Noble has gotten it towards that last fight territory right now. If this flips over at all from Skyfoxes, which it will and does there, 97% for Noble. They just need to win one more fight. Unfortunately for them, their ultimate economy isn't in the greatest position currently, especially against the one from Skyfoxes. So they're going to have to make some eco pushes, force out some of these important ultimates like the Amplification Matrix and the Whole Hog from the Roadhog, and farm up some of their ultimates themselves, because they're very close towards Nano Blade, which after this fight they could very easily lose.
Yeah, the Nano Blade is absolutely critical to utilize for Noble against this team of Skyfoxes to try and break them down, especially since Atlas does not have a blade of their own. Other mechanics, though, to try and prevent it. And you can even see Atlas going extremely aggressive onto the support line in the backside. Does get the pick onto Pizza Demon, but this blade from Ultima with the Nano Boost going to get some value, and a follow-through by the Tracer and Hogplay, an entire team kill, and we were not able to see the start of this, but the ending of it is sure glorious for Noble finally able to take a map for this whole week.
And huge congratulations to Noble winning their first map of the Contenders trial. Hats off to them. And you can see, I mean, at the end there from Pizza Demon, one of the clutchest nanos I've ever seen, because he was literally about to die eighth. Atlas was about to assassinate him, and he gets the nano onto Ultimate Web. Ultimate Web flies in, gets the kills that they need, and Noble is able to take their first map in all of Contenders. So hats off again to them. And for Skyfoxes, maybe the Roadhog and Hammond has messed with them in a little bit of a way. They didn't seem as comfortable playing against it as we saw yesterday when they were playing in the Genji Poke mirrors. So this composition from Noble maybe showing up a little bit more so than we would have ever expected, because this is again the first time that we have seen them the entirety of the Contenders trials broadcast so far. So for Noble, again, great job to them getting their first map win, and now try and get that first series win as well off the back of it.
To kind of piggyback off it, you touched on it by saying that this is the first time that they're live. We go to a black screen where they are not live. And then they come out on top saying, we still don't want you guys to see what's happening. We're going to do this under the cover of night and gain all of this percentage and then come out on top towards the end when it matters for you to see. That's extremely hilarious that they're just like, nah, fam, we don't want airtime. We're good. We're good. But now we're going to come back into this, like you said, taking a map, absolutely critical. And like you said, with the Wrecking Ball and this Roadhog, it's kind of just something I would say that multiple teams would be just not used to. And with how Skyfoxes is going into this, they still played well on the control map. It's just they fell short, especially when it came to that well map and positioning.
And I think I wonder how this composition, as we go into our next map, I wonder how this composition is going to continue. If Noble is going to continue playing it, because maybe on the other map types, it's not as good as it on control, because a lot of control is like the great equalizer between team compositions, where you can make almost anything work realistically in this 2-2-2 format. And for Noble, I think we have seen some teams fiddle around with it in Overwatch League, the Hammond and the Roadhog, but in Contenders trials, like you mentioned, Rich, it's mostly just been the Genji Poke, and maybe Skyfoxes aren't used to something like this composition being played. Obviously, we haven't seen Noble on stream at all, so obviously it's going to be surprising to them, and maybe we'll have to see if Skyfox is able to adapt to it, or if the surprise is going to continue into our second matchup, and then Skyfoxes would end up losing the series.
And that's the part I think I'm really going to look at as well, from that tank lineup between Moose and Chain and how they're going to synergize moving into this. Again, we've really not been able to have any sort of visibility of Noble, and we've really, hyper focused on that because we can start learning what their type of play style is and actually how it competes against a team like Skyfoxes. And, with how Chain and Moose is playing, I would be curious to watch and see how both Fallen and Autumn Soul manage the backline if this Wrecking Ball continues to be a relevant character moving forward in their composition, along with also how to manage with the Roadhog as well. That really just beefy tank that is able to shut down any sort of backline aggression, especially if you land a stellar hook onto either a Tracer or a Genji play. It's going to be really, really vital. But with Aether on this hidden Ash that we've talked about recently, that could be a really great equalizer.
I wonder, that's the thing. Are we going to see Ash, or are we going to see something like McCree again? Because we did see in that little bit that we saw before we went to the black screen that there was Aether that was playing that McCree. And McCree, obviously, against Hammond, if you have something like a Brigitte coupled with it, that's a lot of CC to deal with. And most of the time, it's very difficult for Hammonds to live through all that CC and through all the burst damage that's coming in from basically everyone just stacking around you and shooting you at the same time. So I wonder if that's a little bit of a difference that we're going to see in Skyfox's Cup when we go to Blizzard World, because I think Blizzard World, obviously, Genji Poke is very prominent, usually used with Ash. But if Noble continues to run things like the Hammond, I wouldn't be shocked if Aether continues to play McCree, because it offers that other option of CC.
Oh, for sure. And we saw another dynamic from Skyfoxes when it came to Blizzard World, especially on that initial defensive hold. The rotations were actually done very well. We've seen it a couple of times over the week, both on Monday and yesterday as well, that they've been managing to coordinate as a team. And with that, McCree being entered into this, the rotation is going to need to be even more critical because you don't have something like the coach gun for that reposition. You only have that minor adjustment with the tumble and making sure that there's enough evasion from anything like Noble coming into attack. And I'm really interested to see how Skyfox is going to be able to manage that against Noble.
And I think the other thing as well is Noble is with their composition. I think someone who had an actually pretty decent game overall was Ultimate Web. He did have that one blade that I think was more of a hero blade than anything
Mhm.
else, but besides that, I think a lot of the time getting a lot of good value off of the Genji plays, getting a lot of value off of Genji dashes, and comboing with a lot of the disruption that Noble is causing, right? That's really the name of the game with this composition. You want to just basically make the enemy team as uncomfortable as possible because you have a Hammond, you have a
Mhm.
Hog, a lot of displacement abilities with just the bull from the Hammond or with the hook from the Roadhog. So I think for Noble, when I look at them, if disruption continues to be the name of the game for them, they're going to stay on this composition, even though it is going to be Blizzard World, a map where we usually see the Genji dive poke. And I mean, for Noble now, the ball's in your court, right? Because
Mhm.
for Skyfox is really the ball's in your court, but for Noble, you're trying to get that first series win. You got your
Mhm.
first map win, now get your first series win to topple over onto that, and then you have really something to hang your hat on. Like we beat a pretty good team in Skyfoxes, and we have what it takes to come back here next time and maybe potentially get back into Contenders.
And especially because Skyfoxes, like we talked about earlier, is that gatekeeper for Uprising. They played a really pivotal role here. So to take a team who has really been able to affect this entire Group B's, finalization and point scoring and where to compete, that's something to still be very proud of. And the other thing too, on a little bit more of a broader spectrum, is really just this Ana usage by Noble, committing that Ana
Mhm.
role, which we don't see too much of. It's typically with the Brig and the Baptiste. Ana can be a very high risk, high reward. We saw towards the end of Ilios where there was a shutdown, but still a clutch nano that came through. What would you like to see specifically from Noble to try and maybe help fortify and assist this Ana play by Pizza Demon?
I mean, I really don't. I think the Ana here served its purpose really because I think the purpose of Ana is just to get nano, and
Mhm.
you can obviously still win with things like getting really good nades, but against things like double shield, if the double shield is playing it correctly, there really shouldn't be opportunities where the Ana can get an insane amount of value with her nades. So it's basically just there to it's like that meme, like, what are you here to do? You're just here to farm nano for me. That's basically what Pizza Demon was doing. And he did a good job of it throughout the entirety of Ilios. So I think for Ana, the way that they played it on there, I think the way that you keep playing that is totally fine. You can have the Ana be sacked sometimes if the rest of your team is going in and getting a lot of that displacement. Because what are the things that the tanks for Noble's composition, the thing that they have a lot of is self survivability, right? You have Roadhog who
Yes.
can heal himself. You have the Hammond who is almost unkillable if he's in an enclosed room with 5 people and he can get all those shields. So I think they don't need to really think about fortifying the Ana as much because I think their tank line is just doing a fine job of staying alive and basically being meat shields for the Genji for the rest of their DPS.
Absolutely. And as we hop in now to Blizzard World, you will get to see a side swap. Actually, no, correction. It's going to be attacking first is Noble, while Skyfoxes are on the defense. So, with Skyfoxes being on the defense, you talked a little bit about that. I'm curious if it is going to stick out being the McCree. I would
Yeah.
really lead to believe the same thing. Just already with how confident Noble was going into that type of, Roadhog ball composition, and you can already see it's hovered over here in those in the cams, but there it is. There it is. The McCree is here, and I'm excited to see it.
So we do have the McCree. Obviously, they're expecting that there is going to be a Hammond on the other side from Noble, which I would, based on how that went on Ilios, I think that's definitely a possibility, and it looks like that's what's being hovered on in the spawn right now. Obviously, things could change because it is the offensive spawn, and they'll just cast their curses eventually, Rich. It always happens, but it is just standard Genji poke, realistically, coming out from Skyfoxes with the addition of the McCree instead of the Ash. And I think this is a good, obviously, switch for them. Like we talked about a little bit before, McCree offers that CC to deal with the Hammond going into that backline and trying to cause as much disruption as possible. Moose going to go back onto the Roadhog again. So this is going to be a lot of disruption coming out from Noble's composition. Pick potential as well. You have a ton of. and we'll see how both of these teams play against each other. I like the wrinkle as well of having Tensa on this Mercy here, because it does offer you resurrection and it offers you some damage boosting as well. So even when you lose that first fight or get picked first, you're going to be farming some ultimate charge off of the Mercy, off of this Ashe already. You can see 20% already gotten for Ashe just off of one dynamite that hit one person because it's damage boosted.
Yeah, the Ashe dynamite is critical to try and boost, and I like this flanking position coming out from Ultima right now, along with Chain, just causing a lot of disruption and chaos, and Moose finding a hook on the high ground from this rotation with a great follow-up by Pizza Demon in the back, getting a double Bionade onto the tanks, absolutely left low for the cleanup by Ashe, and Noble really putting on a show right now.
I think that was so smart, all things considered, from Noble there. The positioning was great. They sent their Hammond and their Genji basically to force the entirety of Skyfoxes into Snack's Rammus there, and once someone steps out of position just once like Atlas does there, boom, instantly gets hooked, gets obliterated, only has 9% to his ultimate charge. That's passive charge right now. And you can see for ultimate weapon, he has 75% to his. He's going to get played way before Atlas will.
And that is a great lead into this choke point with the payload to compete against it, but there's a lot of low health values, and the fact that Tensa is out and a follow-through onto Pizza Demon, both supports gone. Noble is in a difficult position, and this will be a reset with Skyfoxes holding the door.
Oh, and Frosting gets actually booped off, so that means that the respawns are much closer here for Noble, and they're going to be able to get the cart pushed a little bit more so. Ultimate just going to try and farm a blade here. Going to be totally safe and get out, I think. Yeah, he's fine. So he's fine. Noble getting more ultimate charge. Moose gets another kill onto Aether, so Noble has complete control right now of the cart as it's moving through, and we're just waiting for this next fight to begin, Rish. When it'll happen, we're not too sure just yet, because Noble is going to be diving in to a supercharger, and here it is.
Ooh, leading with the blade. Nice crowd control up front and a follow-through from the support line. The dynamite does take out Autumn, even though it was a nice rejection onto the blade. But just there is so much dismay on Skyfox's end because of how Noble's playing. Skyfoxes is unable to recover from this.
There's just so much space being created by this Hammond and by Noble entirely that they've pushed this cart all the way to the second point here without taking a single fight on it.
Absolutely, and there's a stun coming through to at least finally shut down Kane, who's been such a pivotal anchor on this front, just to give space for Moose to find different angles. Ultima still getting a decent amount of shuriken damage to generate a blade, but with you have the whole hog along with Bob starting to generate on Noble, there is still the possibility of maintaining pressure. Supercharger has to come out by Skyfoxes with now Atlas and the blade. A nice pickup in the back by Aether to assist, but constant shutdown once again. Atlas unable to gain any value with this, and this is just such a drawn-out fight with Skyfoxes holding on to the brink to keep this fight going.
Skyfoxes having the respawn advantage really helped them there as they were able to get back, and Noble has to walk a little bit more far to get back to that cart. So Skyfoxes are able to stop the bleeding a little bit in a very elongated fight. For Noble, I mean, a lot of ultimates were used in that fight as well, so very expensive from both of these sides. But if you're Skyfoxes, you do have the amplification matrix, so when Noble dives into you, you can use that, and you can basically stop the dive from coming in or blow someone up before they get any damage done.
And blowing up a target is always a priority here. Hopefully Atlas can find a one-clip blow-up onto the opponent of Noble. Supports in the back, especially with Pizza Demon housing that nano. Bob comes through, and a nice pile drive to cause some harass in addition to synergize those well. But the cart, like you said, being really contested, and finally has to have Skyfoxes drop down to compete. Under 2 meters to go. Noble so close, but gonna be shut down with 2 minutes to work with.
A lot of very scrappy fights happening here, Rich. And unfortunately for Noble, the nano was used and isn't going to be available for the Genji blade from Ultima Web. That is something that they probably would have liked to have had in this next fight. And with 1 minute and 40 seconds, Rich, with where the cart is currently under the pylon terrace, you are going to get one, probably two more shots at this because of how far the respawns are. And with Chain going down, that's even more time taken off the clock. So for Skyfoxes, this defense is holding pretty well for them, but they are going to be going up against a lot of ultimates. And with Aether going down, that's not good either.
Yeah, it's just this constant exchange back and forth, and it's really something you don't want to see from either team. And it's going to start reaching that last fight territory now because of the time spent. Minefield being led by Chain in the back with a Dragon Blade as well. A lot of damage into the Fortified Orisa. No assistance from the supports is high enough. And a nice slash to deflect damage as well onto Aether. That opens up the door for Noble to take a step through, but it's still being contested in this back end by at least one, finally removing Atlas, who is causing some harass. And now you're going to see some regroup and potential swaps here. It's actually going to be Ultima the Bastion.
Oh, it's the pirate ship, Rich. I haven't seen Bastion in such a long time. I didn't even know this hero existed, but it's Bastion here. Noble are going to be, it's going to be very difficult right now for Skyfoxes to be able to stop this push that's coming through from Noble. I mean, they have to just switch Aether onto the Hanzo, offer more shield break from them, but they are not expecting this. There's no way they are expecting this whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Go from Cyborg to full Omnic with a ton of damage and a nano boost to boot. The kinetic grass tries to mitigate it from Frosted, but it is not going to be enough. In the small corridor, the melee from Ultima comes out.
Oh no!
And as we see, you've got the Ant Matrix committed, it looks like, but we pause and have some technical difficulties once again for the moment. I know you were just as excited as we were to see the Bastion come out on top of the payload, but looks like we're going to have another brief technical moment. We're speaking with production at the time being. I think it is going to be quickly resolved here. Let's take a look in the time being. But Kenobi, I mean,
pirate ship
Bastion!
I honestly, again, forgot that character even existed whatsoever.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Bastion in such a long time, but it's absolutely melting through people. Given the nano as well, a blast from the past when the pirate ship really sailed king in a lot of these compositions. So for Noble, they're bringing everything, every ace up their sleeve that they thought that they didn't show on stream beforehand. They're bringing right now. And I love that kind of adaptation coming from a team that we haven't seen before, but those little intricacies, I really, really like that.
Noble's putting on a show. I gotta say, for not being in the broadcast for the whole week, and then on the 5th day, we're gonna see a show like this. That's pretty awesome. I'm personally just gonna say that. And it's, you know, it was already one thing to see a little bit of like tiltage by going with a Wrecking Ball and a Roadhog, but now to bring in that Bastion is really just putting the cherry on top at this moment to throw off Skyfoxes. And when you have a nano boosted Bastion, I mean, come on, friends.
It's what do you do at that point? It's almost like it's like everything. They're like, oh, they have a Bastion. You see them like they're scrambling. They have to pick Hanzo to have more shield break instead of what they were originally having. And then the Bastion's sailing through the third point. And as you can see from Noble, they sail all the way through, get all 3 ticks.
Okay.
And the pirate ship ends up working, Rich. That's what matters, really, is the pirate ship worked on third in Blizzard World. Haven't seen it in a very long time, but Noble bringing out the nice composition, I would say, that I haven't seen in a very long time.
It's refreshing. It's definitely. It's like a big tall glass of ice water filled to the brink in a hot summer day. Since we're now in the season, I feel like I'm advertising for water at the moment, but
I mean, hey, stay hydrated, obviously. You gotta stay hydrated. It's very hot where I am right now. It's like, I think it's 90 degrees. So
yeah, big heat.
I gotta stay hydrated.
South is what I've heard too over the next couple of weeks. But I mean, you know, we're not weathermen. We at least know some things. You know, it's hot. I'm here in Illinois where it's still hot and humid. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of heat coming out too now on this attacking side for Skyfox because they don't want Noble to take this win right now.
And Noble on their defense, again, a really interesting wrinkle coming out from their composition, opting not for the Genji, but opting for the J Silly coming in. And we're going to be seeing that Junk Rat. So spamming through these very some of these choke points are pretty narrow, but you can, again, cause a lot of disruption. And it's so interesting to me that Noble on the defense have, again, shown us a different wrinkle in how they would like to play. And this time they're bringing out the Orisa and the Sigma that we hadn't seen too much of, where it's been mostly the Hammond and the Roadhog as Aether. Okay. That was close. Very close. Probably too close for comfort for my man.
Absolutely. Aether there for a hot moment saying, no. Like I would be in a competitive game.
Save me! Save me, supports!
Please save me. as the push forward from Skyfoxes on this left-hand side is present. Noble still funneling a lot of damage, already just below 50% generated from Ultima, and an early takedown with the Ash play onto Atlas is going to cause some serious problems. But with Aether looking for a flank, this has to be tried and true with Frosted, and this rotation we talked about earlier is really critical for Skyfoxes to take advantage, but there is an instant reply by Noble managing the boosted high ground with the Ash and shuts it down.
The rotation that Skyfoxes made was actually really smart, but the rotation from Noble equally as good. They put everyone away from the point, knowing that they can't take a fight on point against a lot of the brawl, and they have so much spam that it's very difficult for Skyfoxes to live. And for Noble, again, a great defense coming out from them so far. There is the Riptire available from Ultima Web Rich that can basically end the fight before it even starts and take more time off of the clock from Skyfoxes, and this is match point. So more time wasted is getting them closer towards winning their first series of Contenders Trials.
And buying more time is going to help if that Bob gets online, and there is constant damage here from the side angle again, uncontested. Moose forces out that Flux on the front side with some early leading damage from Pizza Demon on that amplification matrix. Bobs get thrown in to try and mitigate and compete against Skyfoxes, who actually pumped out quite a bit of damage onto Noble, but major props to Tensa and to Pizza Demon to withstand it. And the fact that you now have another high ground position from Ultima, it's just causing so much havoc onto Skyfoxes.
And they don't even need to use the tire as well, Rich, which was the best thing. And they keep their superchargers, so the important ultimates that they need, they continue to keep. This patience and ultimate economy is so good from Noble so far, but looking along to what Skyfoxes have, they have the blade, they have the supercharger that can combo with it as well. They can win this fight right here, but Rich, this is the last chance that they get. If they don't win this fight, they aren't going to get another set of ultimate rotations.
And it will lead with the ultimates. Oh, but Matt going down early! You won't have the supercharger for Atlas on the blade. Autumn Souls using the rally to survive through what damage being pumped out by Noble in this back line. And Aether being hit by the accretion even further puts insult to injury, and Skyfoxes has to bail.
Now it's truly last fight, and Rich, they use the rally way too over aggressively there. That armor might be off of Atlas before this fight even starts. That's definitely something you wanted to have for this next push. They have to go in now. They only have 50 seconds left. This is the fight you have to win, and Ultima Web still has that tire that can blow up any engage that Skyfoxes tries to make.
Atlas no longer the raid boss. That was a necessity going into this fight. The supercharger has to be true in sightline to help Atlas out with this blade. Amplification matrix by Pizza Demon to compete, and you see this patience by Skyfoxes around the inside, managing it overhead. Here comes the backline aggression. The coach gun, not gonna be enough. You've got but the Riptire focused. It's not gonna matter. All the while, Atlas causes distraction. Aether, as we've said, is really holding their own and picking up where Atlas left off.
Aether does not want to lose, not now, Rich, and ends up clutching it out insanely. Credit to Atlas as well for creating so much space with that blade, not really showing up in the kill feed as much as Aether did, but still doing a really good job. Aether gets blown up by a damage-boosted dynamite plus the tracers, so... Whew, this is a very back and forth matchup here, and the fights keep going.
Yeah, the rubber band is real. You've got this far aggression by Moose, going to be recovered, though, by Pizza Demon, sticking close and managing with some assistance. And look at this position by Noble. The Ash and Ultima combination is really shutting down Skyfoxes.
Valen looks at Aether and says, Aether, anything you can do, I can do better. And gets a nice little TK off the back of that to stop Skyfox's momentum going forward. And I like this from Noble, this aggressive stance here, playing on this high ground. Again, making Skyfoxes work for every single inch to get out of spawn and taking time off the clock as well. I like this position.
Ooh, the halt working well into the Flux. There is an instant response with Pizza Demon, but the fact that you had Tensa go down and an immediate follow-through onto Pizza Demon is going to give Skyfoxes a chance now to really turn this around. No supports available, but there's still at least some decent exchange to try and run the clock a little bit longer, as Noble will take a regroup here once those final picks come through. Aether saying, I can play too, friend. I'm here.
it's like a ping pong, but it's like a tennis match between both of like these really good Ashe players between Aether and Valen, and both of them have their bobs available to them. But the difference is Ultimate Web has that pulse bomb that can end this fight very quickly, Rich.
Ooh, but while the pulse bomb is being used, Bob is also going to be committed on the return side. Both teams now going to stabilize here. 50 seconds to go as that payload reaches this next checkpoint. Both support ultimates for Noble are available and actually going to lead with the Bob generated just in time. Aether getting super low. A coach gun beautifully brought back into the immortality field to withstand the damage from the Omnic up front, and the rally securing this defensively allows Skyfoxes to still stick in this.
But I think that's actually a really worth combination from Noble there. You use Bob to force out Rally. That's definitely worth it for them. So now they play slow until the Rally armor runs out, and then you can re-engage.
And with the re-engagement, it's 15 seconds. It has to come swiftly. No longer having that immortality field as Valkyrie from Tensa boosts and heals this entire team. But now that it reaches its end, the pulse bomb comes out on the front side, taking down Ultima. The cleanup by Atlas. This checkpoint shall be reached, and another minute and 30 added on for Skyfox.
Minute and 30 left is all Skyfox is going to get. They just need to get it towards that third checkpoint. And Noble, they just need to defend. And if they defend here for their next minute and 30 seconds, they are going to be able to take their next or their first series win here in Contenders. Atlas switching back over to the Genji will be a little bit behind Ultimate Weapon in terms of that ultimate charge. And with a minute left, I'm not sure Atlas is going to be able to farm up a blade in time. But with Valen going down, this should be Skyfox's time to aggress.
Absolutely, and you've got so much riding on the shoulders of Atlas to generate this. It's about the same pace if Matt Man can also get the supercharger, but there's still a lot to work with. Fallen leads with the amplification matrix. That window of doom just around this corner does find a straggler in the backside. Moose playing hyper aggressive and too far forward, and there's 40 seconds now for Skyfoxes to complete this.
They're still moving forward. A lot of ultimates for Noble, though. Blade very close. The supercharger is committed here from Chain.
And the only use of the supercharger thus far for Noble. Can anybody even touch it? No! Skyfoxes managed to come through and force back Noble. What a misplay, unfortunately, at the end there by Noble.
What happened, Rich? That was they could have had that. They had ultimates to work with. That was a fight that they definitely could have won. Oh no, the Bob was trying to get to the cart, but it was body blocked, Rich, and they weren't able to get on it and use it to contest. That is so unfortunate for Noble. Yeah, Noble's on the defense there, but Skyfox is having a lot of guts there, taking all the way from a point where it looked like they were gonna lose right on first and get full held to bring it all the way and having a better time bank than Noble. That's really good for them.
I just hear in the background, poor unfortunate Bob. Go ahead, touch the point. But you're not, because you blocked, because the tank line's right there for you. I'm done, I'm sorry. It's my musical theater days. It just comes out every once in a while. Improv, my friends, is now.
What is your favorite Disney song? Disney princess?
Oh man, I mean, it's gotta be, well, you know, while we're talking about Disney songs,
Great,
I mean,
perfect.
it couldn't be any better. I mean, it's personally from the, oh no, maybe not. Well, okay, we're gonna, it's now there's a rubber band in stream. We're just gonna have a good time, friends. We can have musical numbers for both Noble and Skyfoxes at the moment. That'll be our intermission. That's the intermission right there. Is the lovely audible by us. I would have to say Lion King. Just there's a lot.
Lion King?
There's a ton from Lion King. What about yourself?
It's hard to choose actually.
I know,
because I think like I like the I like My Reflection. That's a really good one.
I mean, technically part of Disney is Star Wars, so you could go there, Kenobi.
I could. There aren't really like a lot of singing numbers in Star Wars, unfortunately. There's some really good contracts because we have John Williams doing all the music, but like not really like those like nice Disney ballads, I'd say, are in Star Wars a lot. That would be kind of, imagine if there was like a Star Wars musical, like if that is the next thing that Disney does.
Did we just say it live on stream that's now going to give influence to someone to make this happen? I think we just had $1 million idea. Let's coin it right now.
Yeah, okay. PM, that's ours. No one else steal that. No one else steal that.
Oh my goodness. But as we you know, digress a little bit from our vocal numbers, yes, so we did see a unfortunate mishap from Noble towards the end of it. And man, that was just such a slip up towards the end, and Skyfox is really actually coming out clutch here to miraculously complete that.
I mean, to be fair, it was also really good presence of mind, I think, from Skyfoxes, where Skyfoxes understood that the Bob was really the closest thing, or the one of the only things that could contest the point, and they stand in front of it to body block it, and the Bob doesn't get into point. So I actually think that that's really good heads up play coming out from Skyfoxes specifically. And for Noble, you're kicking yourself if you lose that one, because that was definitely one you could have won, and you could have won the series right then and there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's minor mishaps just like that that can be so detrimental to your morale going into this. Again, they from Noble are looking to take a win. They've already taken a map win at least, which is great, but now they want this first to two. They're gunning for it and they need it to keep themselves prideful moving through this. And you know, with the fact that now you do have a minute and 30 seconds on the time bank for Skyfoxes because the overtime was there. Well, you know, I mean, could Noble hold on to this?
I mean,
And with
it's drawable, Rich.
it
That's
is.
one
And
thing.
look at this cup.
I mean, this is very much a brawly style of composition. They're going to take it probably to them. They might hide this, I think, from Skyfoxes, and if Skyfoxes doesn't expect this to come at them, they will lose this fight, especially if they aren't ready for it. So there's so much brawl potential, as you can see now with Noble, with the composition that they have. If Skyfoxes is not ready for this, it could be the detriment of Skyfoxes entirely, and we could already get a draw in our second map here.
Ooh, we wanted to see more maps between these two. Noble is not going to get this easily.
No.
Skyfoxes is basically saying, we're not just going to let this happen, friends. So we've already seen them be the gatekeeper to bring down Uprising Academy, and now they want to be the gatekeeper to prevent the kill as the engagement comes through. Chain on the front and the Reinhardt really just sweeping that hammer. The assistance from the support line. But you have Skyfoxes still holding quite well and actually get a pick onto Moose. And the staggers come through. There it is. Skyfoxes swiftly taking that rush cop and annihilating it in front of our eyes.
And Noble, they roll the dice on this composition here, the stall, but they just aren't able to do it. And Skyfoxes take this map 4-3 on Blizzard World, saving themselves from match point. Now they get a match point of their own, as we're going to be going to our third map very soon. But Noble, again, probably kicking themselves so hard because after that, like, first offense and their defense there, where they had ultimates to work with, they had the ability to stall even longer, just doesn't end up working. And they rolled the dice on this defense, also doesn't end up working as well. And Noble, unfortunately, lose that one. But if you're Skyfoxes, you're definitely taking that one to the bank.
Definitely taking it to the bank, cashing the check, putting the cash in the pocket, put it in the wallet, and go and buy some ice cream because that's what I want. But yes, actually, that sounds really good right now.
Actually, it's so fucking good right now, dude.
It really is.
You're talking about like these like cold glasses of water, talking about ice cream. Like, stop! I stop it. We need.
Where's our bottled water and ice cream sponsors right now? Let's do that. But seriously, though, as you said, with Skyfoxes being able to take it, Noble is going into this next match a little bit shaken. And if they can recover, it will be absolutely integral to them to be able to recover from that subtle loss towards the end of it. But before we get that underway, we will be going to a break before entering into the map of Temple of Anubis. So don't go anywhere, friends, because we want to see if Noble can finally gain a series win. Hello and welcome back, everybody, as we've had quite the interesting day, not only between fights, but also with tech, as we've got now Noble and Skyfoxes going head-to-head on Temple of Anubis to see who's going to get this match point. I am Rich right here with Kenobi, looking to finish this potential map off. Kenobi, as we take a look at the defensive side of Nobles, they're playing some interesting compositional decisions here.
Yeah, it's the halt and hook combination, a combination we haven't seen in a very long time, but Moose obviously very much well known for his Roadhog play. And as we can see from Noble, again, with their defense, they're bringing in the Junkrat, and I actually kind of like the idea of bringing a Mercy along with this. You can damage boost either the Junkrat, or you can damage boost the Ashe when they hit the Dynamites and farm up a lot of alt charge that way. So liking what I'm seeing from Noble and from Skyfox's standard composition coming out from them. The Genji poke that we've been seeing dominating the meta so far throughout the entirety of Overwatch.
And you now have a quick, almost instant deletion onto Matman from Skyfoxes. And pushing into this, Skyfox's health bars are just being eliminated and need to play very carefully.
I mean, you can see how much value Ultimo Up is getting off of this Junkrat already. 76% towards his ultimate. That Riptire going to be online very soon. And that means that Fallen has to really be the one who comes in clutch with a nice immortality field to stop it.
Timing is even more critical for this. The Dragon Blade has the duration over time that you can maybe buy a few seconds if that first slash comes through, but the Riptire is an instant kill. But the amplification matrix generated by Fallen to lead into this, maintaining that middle high ground, is critical. And throwing the Dynamite, they're getting some decent pick damage on top of Noble is very difficult right now. The halt hook doesn't manage to connect as well from the low ground, and this is a chance now for Skyfoxes to really get a great advancement, but Ultima with the Riptire coming around the back, flanking over the wall just across, does get Atlas, which is still a very critical pick. Amplification matrix by Pizza as well from this high ground. The boost, but the Dynamite on the back line here from Aether saying, I am still here as well, friend. There is just so much of this ongoing with the respawn that a res comes out miraculously to keep this going, Kenobi.
But Frosted is going to get a couple of kills here. It looks like, no, he doesn't get the Baptiste. That means the healing is still alive.
Manages to boots away, getting some distance and keeping it out, but Atlas sweeping in with the blade, dashing to the inner corner, gets the reset onto Pizza Demon, and now continues to maintain this point. One tick obtained. Here is the potential second, with Fallen taking down two of their own, tallying up the score of takedowns. And finally, Skyfoxes, through the scrappy midst of it all, take this first point.
That was certainly a fight of Overwatch that we just saw there, Rich. That's what I'll call it there. Lasted for about 2 minutes altogether, and Skyfoxes are able to take that first point, not using a lot of their key ultimates. They did use Supercharger, but they were able to farm up in the meantime the Bob and the Genji Blade. And then going into this next fight, those could very easily be used to snowball.
And with the snowball, and really uncontested right now from Skyfoxes flanking around, this dive-centric type composition with the Winston leading in and Ultima in the back line, and the hook comes through as well. There's already a point taken by Skyfoxes, keeping pressure and dominating, and a little bit of discombobulation from Mobile, and the fact that Chain has gone down makes this even harder. Bob on presence. 7 members of Skyfoxes adding the Omnic, and Bob's gonna help secure that point with an entire team kill. The bell shall toll, and 4 minutes just under the time bank for Skyfoxes.
Skyfoxes looking very good, Rich, on that offense, getting 3 minutes and 45 seconds off of in their time bank. Pretty good for them in terms of time bank allowed. But Noble, I mean, the composition, I like the idea of using the Mercy and the ability to damage boost, but if Ultimate Weapon is going to die that early in that first fight, then it basically negates everything that the Mercy was standing for, because you were trying to get towards that tire, and while Ultimate Weapon came back with the tire later in the fight, it didn't really end up mattering at all. So for Noble, just a little bit of a miscalculation there, especially because Ultimate Web died in a place where the Mercy couldn't res him. So Tensa really couldn't do anything about it, and you lose another one of those things that makes Mercy so valuable, especially on a defense like this. And for Skyfoxes, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're going to play probably Genji poke on defense. And for Noble, they can go back to maybe a little bit of a different composition that they like to play on the other types of maps, where you have something like the Hammond and like the Hog, I would expect Moose could also play the D.Va as well. So we'll see what Noble brings to the table here on this first offense.
And as we conclude the discussion of Noble, let's have a discussion about Atlas being on this Echo, my friend.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. Echo has not seen as much prominence recently as things like the Genji, but if Ultimate is going to come out on this Pharah, I actually really like this a lot from Atlas because this is a very good read. You can deal and duel with the Pharah in the air pretty well if you're Atlas, unless Ultimate is hitting a lot of really good directs, which is hard to do against something like an Echo. So I really like this adaptation from Skyfoxes on their defense. Good read coming out from them.
And while we've got the overhead, you see Moose already taking one onto Atlas. And that's a great entryway, but at least Frosted able to respond, taking down the Ash play with the accretion. And Ultima's just going to play very reserved here, like you said, looking for those direct rockets and concussion. One off, but there's still a point almost being taken by Noble.
And Fallen goes down. That's a lot of healing that is going to be lost for Skyfoxes on this defense. And for Noble, you can play this slow. You have an advantage when it comes towards those respawns in your favor. Chain going down is going to stop this a little bit, though.
Yeah, it's going to definitely slow some momentum. Ultima trying to capitalize on this with Aether being picked off and still managing to get a nice displacement off the high ground. So now Noble has been able to transition positioning, and you've got Matt so low on this inside along with Frosted as Rocket continue to rain. The shields are there to block it, but it's only going to last for so long with this consistent applied pressure and just jumping in the back. You've got Pizza Demon also hyper-focusing the Echo play. And, I mean, really right now, Noble, with this interesting composition, is still doing a stellar job, but has to be aware of Aether with the double kill in the back. Does help attempt equalization, but it's not going to be enough. Noble perseveres through it all, and a beautiful job, especially this transition from Pizza Demon to this heal and DPS swap and knowing when to attack.
Yeah, Aether really tried to clutch that out, almost did as well, but it just wasn't enough, and now Noble has a 5-minute time bank going in to the second point here. Can end this map with more time than Skyfox has had. Nice hook there from Moose to start things off, and here's a minefield.
And going to get some nice separation, but Chain barely able to escape. Nice job by Test to keep that Wrecking Ball alive. And with bolt support ultimates, that's really critical going into this push.
We're seeing Valen trying to get on the flank. He is spotted out, so he's going to have to retreat. He's very close towards that pulse bomb. The Skyfoxes have a good amount of ultimates to work with here on this defense. Duplicate being the main one. We'll see what Atlas decides. Probably just wants to get another Orisa in there.
And with the Pulse Bomb leading at least for one ultimate, Frosted will compete back with the Flux and Rally of their own. You're only going to actually have Tessna with that Valkyrie be forced out and gets picked off by Atlas, not needing to use that duplication as you talked about in this fight. Just getting so much value with the focus beam here and shutting down the aggression from Noble.
And they should be able to stagger out Moose here a little bit, so he's going to go down. Not really a stagger necessarily, but he gets taken down. Noble actually making some wholesale swaps over to a different composition, especially for their DPS, where they're bringing Valen and Ultimate Web back onto the Genji Ashe, the DPS duo that has reigned supreme recently in Overwatch. And Aether on the Doomfist on defense, as you know, Rich, Doomfist on Anubis defense, one of the most strong things in this game. Has a lot of walls to work around and can get those one-shots onto people.
And we'll see if the one-shot comes through up front, gets a nice shield from Frosted, and actually has a decent exchange 1-for-1, but that's going to be a big dynamite over top, and Ultima gets nanoed, but there's no opportunity to generate the blade quick enough. It's still going to give some extra percentage, but all the while the focus is towards Ultima. Skyfoxes gets obliterated by all other members, and this contest is going to be extremely difficult from Skyfoxes to stay in this fight, especially when shots like that come through, and the dynamite to take down even more.
There is the blade here from AltaWeb. What's he going to be able to get with it? He's just trying to get the stragglers, takes Atlas down. Their Orisa is not soon for this word, long for this world, rather, and it is going to be Skyfoxes not being able to hold their defense. They get it down to 2 minutes, so 3 minutes away from what you started with is not the worst option there, but when that fight happened at the start, what basically led to the death of Skyfox's defense there, they Icarused and went way too close to the sun because that was a massive, massive dynamite that basically annihilated the entirety of their team. So well played from Valen, and Valen as well. Those shots that he hit on the Doomfist when he was uppercutted like that, that's nuts. That's some sick plays coming out from him. All no-scoped as well. So
just awareness. Just
yeah.
real, and also, mind you, having the space to take that time. That's the other part of it too.
And we're seeing again Echo again coming out from Skyfoxes. So again, they probably expect that there is going to be Noble running the Pharah. It can be used to deal with the Pharah in a certain way. For Noble, though, the real thing that helped them in that first offense was that Moose was getting a lot of key hooks onto targets and important ones. Fallen was taken out a couple of times. Atlas died first to the Roadhog, which realistically shouldn't happen. There really shouldn't be a position where the Atlas is getting hooked like that unless it's a really nasty hook from Moose. So they're going to have to play a little bit more carefully around Moose in general on this defense than they did on their first one.
And that's going to be the big focus here. Again, this is match point for these teams with the time banks remaining, and keeping an eye on Atlas and Aether and how they respond to both Ultima and Valen is going to be critical with all of this disruption from Chain. And already a decent amount of damage coming out in those choke points from this middle high ground. Skyfox really starting to break down those health values, but Pizza Demon already at 50%, and this is just that constant strategy of taking damage on purpose to heal through it for those ultimates.
And you're probably going to throw this right directly onto the Pharah, and the Pharah is going to do so much damage. As you can see, Chain already on the point, ticking up that percentage. They might get a tick here, Rich.
They actually are going to, because you had Skyfoxes press forward in that side room and is still managing to gain it. Skyfoxes is not committed to this rotation, and Chain gets a knockback and is stunned. Finally shutting it down, but takes Fallen with. So it is a 1-for-1 pick with already under 60% gain. Noble still playing a little bit forward. That stun is going to be critical. The kill onto Moose has to come out, but still can't execute.
And you can see Valen here is already on a cross angle, so the crossfire very well set up for Noble. They have 50 seconds left, but the fight has to be won here, Rich.
Yes, indeed. The 50 seconds continue to dwindle. Dynamite onto the side. Big pick onto Phelan. Is there a follow-up onto Fallen? Is the critical... Oh, and gets super low. Fallen playing so far aggressive. Losing that mobility on the main platform is going to cause a lot of problems, especially when you've got Ultima getting 2, but shut down by Aether. The numbers advantage still in favor of Noble to collapse down onto this point. Diving down as Valen gets the roundabout corner with Moose, and that will be a capture on A to transition to B with 50 seconds to go.
And they have ultimates to snowball this as well, Rich. They have the Bob to make this fight last a little bit longer, as well as the Mercenary Valkyrie that can pump up the damage and sustain. But with Atlas getting Moose that early, this is for sure going to be the last fight that they're going to get, Rich. There is not going to be another chance for them to win a fight. This is all you're going to have left, and Skyfoxes have a treasure trove of ultimates in their own right. Running into a Flux and a Supercharger, especially on this point of Anubis, is very disasterly. And Chain dies too.
That takedown is absolutely detrimental to Noble. They're going to have to push in on this without Chain and hope that he's able to regroup in this. 9 seconds, another pick by Fallen, taking out Tensa. The support is gone. Bob is there. The dash comes out. And you have now a desperate flee with Chain having to force the minefield, zoning off everyone, but that supercharger from Skyfoxes on the defensive side will fuel this return. Overtime wicks away, and you have round 3 completed with nothing gained on point B from Noble.
I mean, Noble on that point B just threw away any chance they had by those 2 picks coming in. Moose dying very early like that really hindered them and made it last fight. And then Chain going down basically secures the win at that point for Skyfoxes. Even if they do come back, they're all straggling in. And then at that point, Tense is down as well. You've lost a lot of your healing. And with the respawns that Skyfoxes were going to have in the advantage, it was just an easy pickup for them to win that with the ultimate advantage they had as well. So for Noble, little bit shaky play on that last offense. And for Skyfoxes, the win condition set for them here, 3 minutes you have to get the first point and then get 1 tick of that last point. This is still drawable, Rich. We could possibly be going to a map 4 here.
We really could. I mean, we've seen it, but we saw it actually day 1, to be fair.
We might be cursed to always, we might be always cursed to cast map 4s.
We might just be, but the curse has not yet been set as we take a look at Skyfoxes and Aether. Well, looking to hover over a Widow probably for that early pick, but I like Noble wanting to stick once again with Ultima on this Junkrat. and Valen on this Ashe. I think it's still going to hold a lot better on this defensive side for them, and it's a confident pick.
And I again, as well, you're shooting a lot through these chokeholds where Junkrat mines are going to get a ton of value as well. And you can farm up that Junkrat ult pretty quickly. The only opposing thing to that is you're going to be giving Fallen a lot of ultimate charge for his amplification matrix. So that's kind of the seesaw that we're going to be looking at here is when does Fallen get his amp matrix and when does Ultimate Web get his Riptire? Right now, Fallen is much more ahead. So once the amplification matrix comes online, they can push aggressively.
And it's already at 81%, just lightning fast. There's a lot of just real great management of these two tanks on the front line taking damage but not being executed to allow that generation. And again, this early 30 seconds is going to be critical with a nice halt to try and even the score on this middle high ground. Once that window comes out by Fallen, green means go, friends.
They're waiting for it. The accretion is out, so is the halt. There is the window right there. Let's see what they can do with it.
Oh, Kinetic Cross is going to mitigate quite a bit on the front side, but the accretion onto Moose was critical. Great timing by Frosted to block that. But this just massive explosive damage from Ultima on the side forces out the immortality field. So many of Skyfoxes are low, and Fallen praying and blasting everyone with these healing grenades to survive as a reposition on this high ground is finally taken from Skyfoxes.
1 minute and 45 seconds left for Skyfoxes here. And a Bob from behind. No one expects it, Rich.
Oh, gets the stun at least with the Brig on the front side and going to be taken down quickly. Valen not able to get as much value with it and no longer has that ult for the drop down on the high ground from Skyfoxes. Riptire coming out. Here is the big win tactic. Gets two! And that could shut down a chance here for Skyfoxes. The follow-through has to come out. Immortality field to keep Skyfoxes on this high ground alive, but the respawn has to come out and a regroup. You've got Skyfoxes in such a hard position right now. And the Ant Matrix!
But Pizza Demon is down and he has to walk back here, but Moose gets a kill onto Autumn Souls. Huge Gravitic Flux from him. He's going to bring them all back down, and Noble are able to hold 1 minute left for Skyfoxes Rich. And this could be their last chance.
Unbelievable job. I can't even just feel how well Ultima is right now on the edge of their seat. I got two with the Riptire and needs to generate another one here.
They're running it. Shane has Supercharger though, so this is very difficult for Skyfoxes to run into. Atlas and Aether both close to their important DPS ultimates like the Bob and like the Blade. It has to be off the back of them for anything to happen.
And now with something needing to happen, you've got the Supercharger going to be thrown by Chain along with Pizza Demon committing so much extra damage from both of these ultimates. Once they fade, that's going to give a chance now for Skyfoxes to push in. You are nearing the Supercharger Dragon Blade. That is a necessity for this collapse onto the point. Bob going to probably lead the way here too to get that extra positional advantage, leading with it to start. The Supercharger not yet generated. Atlas has to wait, but might just go in for it if this Bob is managed. And in the corner, there is the overtime commencing. The Immortality field comes out. Now the Dragon Blade in desperation, but it's not going to be enough. The Riptire takes down before the Supercharger, and Noble is going to be able to take the win here finally over 5 days, claiming a victory over Skyfoxes.
Noble finally get their first series win there with that hold on Anubis. And something that was actually so cool that I saw in that last fight was, you mentioned it, you were talking about the Bob was the thing that was going to be used first. Chain has an insane presence of mind as the Orisa to block the Bob from getting onto point. That means you aren't stalling, and that means that Autumn Souls basically has to throw themselves onto the point at half health to get a touch in overtime. They go down. You lose your Brigitte, and all the dominoes end up falling from there. Great heads-up play from that main tank on Noble, and they're rewarded with a win here on Anubis. Just great play from them on a composition where, again, we hadn't seen a lot of it, but the Orisa and the Sigma works really good for them. The Ball and the Hog works really good for them. This team has a lot of variation with their tank play, and it showed today.
Absolutely. I mean, just Noble's feeling great right now in that last play. I mean, really major props to them after having a really rough week. They've had such a challenge, and now coming in to compete against Skyfoxes and taking a win, it really, really is something to be proud of, despite the difficulty and challenges that they've fought through this entire week. So major, major props to them. And as we have been here this whole time, thank you to all of you that have been tuning in and sticking around. I mean, we've had a lot of technical difficulties. We've had a lot of great Overwatch and some uniqueness as well, as you said, Kenobi. But I mean, now that we conclude the day, we've got all of the tabulation for both Group A, if you were over at that channel and transitioning to this one, and Group B completed now to see who's going to be moving on, Kenobi.
Yeah, so we do have Odyssey and Scion Esports are going to be the two teams from Group A who are going to be going up to that Contenders tournament. So big congratulations to them. Odyssey specifically were 5-0 throughout the entirety of their group stage play. Lost only one map. So again, big congrats to those two teams. And in Group B, we had Malibu, who we casted, Rich.
Crushed.
They didn't golden stage as much as they did not lose a single map the entirety of the time. Huge credit to them. Square One as well is going to be going into Contenders with Malibu as well. And Malibu, that's a team that I am really looking to see in that Contenders bracket, in that Contenders tournament, because not losing a single map in all of trials, that's a pretty good thing to do for yourselves.
100% agree with that. I mean, you've got, and we talked about it too, day one, about Malibu and how they were going to hold their own coming in. We've seen them from the Fran tourney that was, just before this major one that they've been involved in, and they've really held their own. And I 100% agree. I think us, and also for those viewing at home, that's going to be a team to keep an eye on as you continue to move forward. But with the conclusion of this week, we once again greatly appreciate you supporting T2. I have had a blast casting with you this week, Kenobi. It is always a pleasure with our lovely conversations about if it's too hot outside, what are we going to have for a lovely chilled snack, and being able to persevere through tech. So I appreciate you, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, you forgot the Disney. You forgot the Disney soundtrack.
I know. I know.
That was the most important one for me.
It really was. I mean, that's okay. We all have our moments. But for those of you that are still tuning in, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. It has been an absolute pleasure bringing this action to you live. Take care. Happy gaming. And we look to see you next time, and look to see these four teams continue on into Contenders and how well they're going to hold. Have a wonderful evening.